Tuesday will use a lot of devices, but today it's device-free day. Yeah. So welcome to first week. Actually, no. Welcome to week 11.
Welcome to week 11.
Welcome to week 11.
But Ignacio, why is the first week 11?
Why? So I don't know. This should be week 1.
It should be week 1. Why are you calling it week 11?
Yeah. Why we're going backwards?
We're going backwards?
I think we're both going backwards. I have time to read the syllabus.
Oh, you read the syllabus?
I read the syllabus and I realized that we're going backwards.
I haven't read the syllabus.
Who else realized that we're going backwards? Okay. Why?
Why? Why would we go backwards?
So
Fun? It is more fun.
it is fun. I think it's fun. Complications are fun sometimes. Yeah. It's a little more complicated.
It's a complicated world.
It's a messy world. Tyler, why it's a good idea for people? What do you think we're going back?
I mean, it's like a big countdown to the Bible again.
That's good.
That's good. That next year. Next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other ideas? Why would we go backwards?
Starting from the present,
Starting from the present? Why?
because we're in the present.
Okay.
But that is not really common. Most
Yeah.
of history classes start in the
You're
past.
supposed to start with the Big Bang and move forward. Why start in the present?
Yeah.
Because it's more prevalent.
It's the most prevalent thing. Like there's nothing more prevalent than the present.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, that's all I get. Day in, day out is the present. It's everywhere. The present is everywhere.
Actually, I'm realizing now that we are not starting in the present. We're somehow starting in the future.
We are starting in the future.
Yeah.
We're starting in the future. Why would we do that? It's because that's where we're heading. We're heading there, right?
Yes.
So let's start with the end in mind. So that we know what to do now to get ready for the future. How about that? It's a working hypothesis. Let's see how it goes.
Sounds good.
Okay, what's this?
So, do you have time to read the assignments, guys? So today, just for today, in the first 10 minutes of the class, Professor Cowherd and I will be the professor. So, but next week, some of you will be the professor for the first 10 minutes of the class. So, do you have time to read the assignment, be a professor?
No, we haven't given it to them.
Oh, okay. You
It's
didn't
not
have time.
ready. We have to figure this out.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Do you have, did you talk about that on Tuesday or not? I
No,
talked. I
no.
went. So,
They know nothing.
they have no idea.
My group. It's
I
okay.
think they're more than us.
Yeah, so at the beginning of class, well, before class, you did all this crazy reading. Like, oh my God, how long did that take? We recommend, how long could it take? I don't know, I'm a little slow. The first time I read it, I don't get anything. It could take me 7 hours to do that reading. I admit it, I'm pretty slow. But we don't want, friends don't let friends take 7 hours to do this reading. It's not worth it. Please don't do reading. And why would a teacher tell you to not spend time doing reading? It's because we care about you. We care about you deeply. And we care about your success in professional life. In professional life, if you're spending 7 hours to read something like this, you're doomed. You can't afford to spend so much time reading this. What do we do in professional life? It's Friday afternoon, and my boss is kind of a jerk. And he doesn't really like me, wishes I leave the firm, but I'm going to prove to him. He goes boom, and he puts a pile of paper on my desk on Friday evening. And he says, I want you to have I want you to give us a report on this in the conference room on Monday morning at 9 a.m. what do? Do I quit? Do I run away in tears? I know that I'm throwing my best friend a baby shower on Sunday morning. I don't have time I got a plan for the baby shower. I don't have time for this. But I went to Wentworth. And what do? I say, okay, I got this. And the strategy that you learn here at Wentworth, and you apply it to these readings every week, is don't panic, but don't start reading the first word of the first page of the first document. You look through it and you make piles. This is not important. The most important pile is pile of things that are not important. First, you figure out what's your question, what it is you're looking for. You look through, you categorize everything. This is not important. This might be important. This is definitely important. And the biggest pile of those three needs to be, this is not important. I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need this. And you identify in each of these readings or in one of the readings, or if you're good, by the end of the semester, you're going to be good at this. You identify in the 6 readings that we've given you, you identify the bits that matter to you most because you are the world's foremost expert on your own life experience and you know who you're going to be as a professional. And based on your instincts of what's important, you choose the things that are important and you ignore the rest and you respond to those things that you've identified that are important. It only took an hour and a half. You show up on Monday morning and you know your boss, that your team, they're not going to spend 2 hours on this topic. You have 15, no, you have 10 minutes to summarize what you spent part of your weekend doing because you're good at this. You threw the best baby shower anyone's ever seen. And then you submitted on Monday morning, you say, okay, everybody, 3 things you got to remember. 1, boom. 2, boom. 3, and if to follow up on those 3 things, here are the materials that you can look into. Boom. Any questions? Wow. Good job. Jimmy, you're fired. Welcome to the executive team. Success, career success. And these are the skills that we're going to try to work on. There's all this reading. You boil it down, and then every week, a randomly selected team is going to try to do their best to process the writing, the submissions of the rest of the class and feed it to the lecturers as a challenge to see if they are up to the challenge to, I think, adapt the lecture material to respond to the most burning questions.
Did you follow that? So basically, what we're trying to do at the beginning of the class is to understand what are the questions, what we should answer in this specific topic. So what Robert has in the screen is the questions that you wrote in the discussion section of Brightspace. And we try to understand, actually in this case, we try to understand what these questions are about. So in this case, we highlighted in green the main solutions, in proposals, in yellow the main topics, and in blue the most important claims that you are asking. So I don't know if you have the same impression about the questions, but in general, there was a demand in many of the questions about more activism. How we can be more active about the emergent ecological threat that we're experiencing in the world. How we can be more active.
Yeah.
So there was a discussion about this division between activism and design, how we can design proposal, technological operations, but at the same time, how we can be more active and demands from the politicians and others to change the world in order to address climate issues. Any other question that you think was important in the discussion? Anybody can raise your hand. What is important for us to ask about this topic of Anthropocene and climate that we're discussing today? I can. Yeah, who else?
Well, you did all this work, you did your question asking. One of the things we learned by being the first ones to pretend we're the professor, the first week.
Mhm.
Is that in order for this to make sense, we have to trick Brightspace into doing what we needed to do. So when Brightspace, when you're doing your post and you are asked, what heading do you want to give your post? Your first post, before you've seen anything else, please put a question in your post. And if it's in reference to one of the readings, not the other, put Wallace Wells and then put your question based on that article. And that way, anyone who responds to that question that you posted, it will show up and it'll be easier for whoever your colleagues are being the professor that week. It'll be easier for them to reorganize it the way we're used to social media threads working, where someone has a post and then there's responses to that post. Someone else does a post and there are responses to that post. We're going to try to work with the Brightspace team to see if they can help us trick Brightspace into doing the right thing. But in the meantime, we're going to put that in the instructions. So just heads up, please put your first initial question in the header.
That will facilitate the work of the future professors.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, but again, you brought several amazing questions.
Yes.
In-
Really good work.
It was very good work in the
Yeah.
discussion. So what we want to do now is to understand if there is something that you realized reading this and writing the questions that you want us to answer today
In this lecture.
in these lectures that we're giving today. So
Like, this is some of the things we heard you say.
yeah, but again, we want to put in that whiteboard.
Yeah, just so.
What are the most important questions we have about this topic? So, you know, I feel very comfortable with awkward silences. So I'm gonna have a silence today now,
Okay.
waiting for you to respond me. What are the most important questions? I want someone to raise their hands and ask us, what are the most important questions?
Or
we
just
have
to
about
speak,
this
you
topic?
don't even have to raise their hand. We're
Okay, or
calling-
just speak.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I'm gonna be silent now, waiting for you to reply us. Okay, I'll listen.
I read the one where it was the new urban or something.
paradigm.
Paradigm, thank you. And it advocates for to circumvent urban sprawl, that cities need to be more compact and be more viable. And I'm curious of how to negotiate that with people's desire to have space and have privacy.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And well, I'm very difficult. So how we negotiate between capacity and the needs to have my own backyard. with-
Yeah, I want my own backyard. It's the American
Yeah.
dream.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna answer that today. It's gonna take us the entire semester,
Yeah.
and then even then, we're not gonna
So
answer it.
we'll start answering that in week 6 or 7, right?
We will
7 or 6.
we will be responding to that question, and you keep us on track. You'd say, hey, wait, what about the question?
But I have to say that this is one of the main issues of the city. So I
Yeah.
I was debating myself. I want a backyard for my kids to play,
Me too,
but at the same time, I want to walk to the bakery.
me too.
How we can have both things together is very
That's-
difficult.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Okay, it doesn't have to be that good. You can answer.
yeah. You can have more things in more media for you.
Yeah,
Let me see your faces. Yeah, Alejandrina.
I read the first one, the first article beyond, I can't remember the title, but, one like big question that I had in it was like, how can we continue to have hope in a world that feels so hopeless?
So I didn't hear you, sorry.
how to have hope.
Hope. Yeah. Do you have hope? So, Emily, you have a solution for that. You told me at the beginning of the class.
This is not a time for solution.
Oh, yeah, but you had a solution.
What is it?
My sons don't think about it, you'll be fine.
Oh, I don't like that. That's fine personally, take care of yourself, self-care, lots of.
Yeah, that's a good one for self-care.
And then on Monday morning, you gotta show up at work, people are asking architects that be the source of hope. How do architects provide hope?
How we are to provide hope.
I think we're gonna be presenting some hopeful things.
Yeah, we'll try our best to present some hope. Yeah.
Anything else? Let's get one more, at least.
Liam.
My question was, how do we educate the people who are not in an academic career currently? How do we educate and spread the word that our situation is very dire to those people who aren't in school or reading up on the topic?
So you're saying that we have to be like, that connection to the idea of activism that I said before.
Yeah.
How we spread out the voice of these emerging issues that we're having, yeah.
Okay, bonus question, anyone have anything that's needed?
I think we're good with that, but if you have something that
Yeah,
I need to know about this,
Yeah.
I really come inside me, I want to say that. Anything else?
No.
Okay, for next classes, so we are late today, but we're already late.
I know.
Because we have to start with the lecture, but before than that, you still have to talk about why we are number 4.
Oh, I got it in here.
Okay, you have that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they've already, my group, I couldn't,
Yeah, I know that you already said that, but I don't
I
deserve that.
I can't introduce the class without saying I'm
Yeah,
before.
yeah, but listen to me, next classes, and this is very important, this is one of my 30%. I have to, do you know what is my story about the 30%? I believe that because we're missing attention with a lot of devices and this time of distraction, we can only concentrate like 30% of our time. So we know that we are only catching, if we're very, very generous, just 30% of the thing that we're saying. The other 70% are lost. We know that. But you know, look at why it's that difficult to be a professor. So, I don't know if you know that we're not that smart. So not everything that we say is good. So probably what percentage of the things that I say are good, are smart? 30, 20, 10? I don't know. We say a lot of dumb things. So how we can match the 30% of the things that are important that we say with the 30% of your attention? That bothers me. That is very difficult.
Well, here's the beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We're number 4.
Yeah, we're number 4.
We can say things that are wrong, and you will say that's wrong.
Yeah, that's
obviously wrong.
But
You know,
in
with all
any
due respect, thank you, but you're wrong.
yeah. But
Right?
in any case, this is my 30% of today. Next week, some of you will be the professor in the 10 first minute of the class of Thursday. We will try our best to improve the assignment and to explain what you have to do. But at the end, it would be your responsibility to have this in the whiteboard.
Yeah, to
This is what you want to do.
generate challenge questions for the faculty.
So you will be here, some of you will be here, will be there, and you will generate these emergent questions. One thing per week. Similar, or I don't know, similar, better than we did today. So, being said that, I will give you the stage to Professor Campbell.
Okay, I'm gonna look at my clock. And I'm gonna try to finish by 11, 40 minutes,
Okay.
okay? And then hand it off to you.
In 40 minutes, it would be 30 or less, and we'll have time for.
Okay, yeah, at the end, maybe we
can.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do this very quickly, because guess what? Remember history theory 2? Was I there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was you?
This is,
And
yeah.
at the end of the semester, there was that last lecture number 12. This is the same lecture. So you've heard all of this before, believe it or not. I've upgraded it. I packed a little bit more punch. I think I've improved it. But because we think it's very, very important, we think it's foundational. We think the principles here are the fundamental principles that set the stage, not just for this course, but for your education and for your career. I can do that.
Oh, you can do that.
Yeah, I like walking back and forth. So this is an outline of it. You've seen this before. 3 humbling truths that we must come to grips with, that were not true previously. The old way of teaching and learning, if we keep doing it the same way we used to do it, we're in big trouble, right? The old challenge was we had all information, students had no information, and we give you the information. That's where the word lecture comes from. It's Latin for reading. We had no textbooks. So the professor would read the textbook and the students would write down word for word what was in the textbook. Well, we don't need that. We have textbooks, but we still call it a lecture. So then for 100 years or more since the printing press, we still did that because there was no internet. But now that there's an internet, there's a lot of information in this world. This is a data visualization. This is how big the information looks of 500 billion pages of typed text. And this is the size of what's on the internet. That's the size, but that size of information now fits in these things that you have put away in your bags because you're professionals. So what are professors for? What is school for? If you keep doing it the same way, we're all in big trouble. So we can't do that. That's a humbling truth that we have to stop doing it the way we used to do it. The next humbling truth, as you know, if you're paying attention and you care, the system is broken. In previous times, we would have addressed problems before they got serious. We would have responded. There would have been a reflexive response to improve the way things are going. But that didn't work. The system failed to respond in proportionate to the scale of the problem. These are just slides from Shireen. She shared them. And as bad as things are for us here in Boston, it's so much worse in the global South. Notice how I said global South? The other thing about this lecture is it's an outline for the rest of the course. We're gonna be skimming over things really fast, and then we're gonna go in deep as the semester unfolds. But this is, this is the population curve. Oh, okay. Population used to be our biggest concern, but it turns out that it's not so much the population as it is other things. If you know about Al Gore's inconvenient truth about the global climate crisis, this is one of the most important quotes from that film, and it's really the key to everything. That it is difficult for a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. If my ability to keep my job depended on me teaching you one way or teaching you certain content and avoiding other content, then it would be very difficult for me to think that that other content is important. So there's a corollary. It seems very negative. It seems like, oh, capitalism is the problem. Capitalism is going to crush us all. And there's a lot of evidence for that. But I would like you to think of this in another way. Our operating system is capitalism, for better or worse. Are there different types of capitalism? Is capitalism one thing and can only be one thing? Or are there different types of capitalism? And one of the working hypotheses of this lecture is that the operating system of capitalism the rules of the operating system can be engineered to reward bad behavior that has damaging impacts. So now the question is, can we change the operating system? Can we change the rules so instead of rewarding bad behavior, can we rewire it? Can we reverse the positive and negative poles on the battery the way they would in Star Trek? And can we make it so if you do bad things, you get less money. And if you do good things, you get more money. Because what do we know about capitalism? If I'm a good capitalist, I'm good at doing whatever it takes to get money. I don't care if I'm selling you the noose with which you hang me. I am a good capitalist. I will sell you that noose so that you can hang me, right? The incentive of the capitalist is to sell, even if it's harmful to themselves. So if I'm willing to do anything it takes to make money, am I willing to do good? That's a good question. So the US spends over $10 billion a year to repair the devastation of climate change, and it spends over $100 billion a year on subsidies for the economic activity that produces those harms. If the group that is in charge of the $100 billion subsidy were in the same room as the group in charge of the $10 billion remedy for the damage, they could talk to each other. And they could maybe rewire things and offer $110 billion to remedy problems, or create an incentive with that same money to do good things. That was easy. All we have to do is change the way the system works. And there's something called cap and trade that the rest of the world engages in, but in the United States, the lobbyists made sure we buried that idea and could never do it. Except in California, they joined the cap and trade treaty with Canada. So now they're using capitalist incentives to reduce greenhouse gases. They've done exactly what we just mentioned, that they've made it so you can make more money if you do less harm. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to say, there's the obvious thing that we think, there's the way we think of the problem, and then there's the operating system design solution. And we're going to talk about what an operating system design is. We used to be obsessed with population, right? Who's frightened with population? What's the current population?
We hit 8 billion.
We did. We hit 8 billion recently, ahead of schedule. This data was projections back from 20 years ago when I first found this data. And the other thing that's happened is our anticipation of peak human. It used to be about 9.5. Now peak human is about 11 billion. And it's going to happen after you're dead. We thought you would all live to see peak human. But the green arrow is where you will be reaching your peak career moment, where you'll be in charge. People will be turning to you for solutions. The third humbling truth is that there's no time to waste. Maybe 30 years ago, a class like this, we would say, okay, let's tiptoe gingerly into the topic. We don't want to overwhelm you. Let's take it in small bites. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for you to think about possibly having an impact in the future. We have no time for that. We got to do it now. So we need you to be design professionals. We need you to consider in a very profoundly personal and professional way, who are you and who will you be in the year 2050 when every head in the room turns and looks at you? Because you're the one with the fancy degree from Wentworth. You're the one who trained for this. What do you wish you learned back in 2025? What do you wish you learned back in that very expensive, very privileged, very time-consuming education of yours? What do you wish you had gained from it that could have helped you here in 2050? So a little bit of time travel is a useful thing. So one of the things we do as professionals is when we're puzzled by the complexity of the world, and we're overwhelmed by how hopeless it seems, we're architects. We open our sketchbooks and we draw and we write words and we draw pictures. And that's what we want you to do in this class. We want you to engage graphically with the content. We want you to, the output at the end of these lectures on Thursdays, you should have something that you can carry away and to trigger your recall and to remember those insights or those questions or those troubling moments so that you can make sense of it over time. This is not just a passive, we're not just doom scrolling through YouTube. We're engaging in developing the skills and we're developing a relationship with these questions and the relationship with the examples that offer solutions. That relationship starts here, but it doesn't go away. It needs to be a lifelong relationship. It needs to be something that you have a record of and you walk away with something in your sketchbooks. Okay. The 4 sources of understanding. You've been in my classroom before, so you've heard this. What are the 4 most important sources of understanding? The world is number 1. You are the world's foremost experts on your own life experience. We need you to bring that expertise to the profession every day. We can't afford you to say, who am I? I'm just a student. I'm just a junior. What do I know? We can't afford that. The world needs you to bring your full investment of who you are to this. But everyone has their own life experience. We respect that. But just as doctors have a special way of seeing the human body and life's journey, architects and designers have a special relationship with the world that gives us insights that other people don't have access to. So we use, between Thursdays and the next Tuesday, you bring those mad skills of architects to bear on helping us to understand this situation that you've chosen for the analysis assignment. Number 3, your colleagues. Don't have to explain that, you get it. And we're number 4. We do the best we can. We're teaching in ways that we wish we had been taught. So just as we expect you to have a critical attitude towards what we're trying to do, we have a critical attitude towards our life experience. And we're doing the best we can to take it up a notch every class, every year. So we're going to be looking at things that help give us hope. What is it that design can do? And these are things that you should start a collection. What can design do? What can I do that might have an impact on the fate of the world in the future? And we look at the news and we notice that the world is systematically harming people. It's not just something happens. Someone gets killed by someone who shouldn't have been in trouble, gets killed by the police. Well, that's a shame that event happened. But if you look at it as an isolated event, you're missing the point, and there's no hope of changing the future. You have to understand that when someone innocent has been killed by the police, that's a system problem. That's a system failure because it's not an isolated incident. It happens systematically. And so we have to think about systems. We're architects, we do think about systems on a good day. If the world is systematically harmful to so many, can it be systematically restructured? How do you restructure the system? Here's an example. Remember this from History Theory 2? We talked about colonialism. This is an architecture, and you could think of it as, oh yeah, that's great. Someone designed a boat. That's a nice design. But it's not just a design project. It is a crucial instrument that operates within a larger system. The design of the boat has the system operating rules embedded in the design of this one thing. And then you design 700, you build 750 of them, and you kidnap people and take them across the planet, killing a third of them. That's system. That's a system design. So when we look at thesis projects, we see this more and more every year. I don't know if you saw, did you see the thesis projects? You should check out the next batch. But students aren't just designing projects. They're designing projects that come out of an understanding of how systems work. And systems have a strong relationship to even the larger forces of culture. So we see this relationship in the 20th century. We used to say, oh, architects, we have no power. We're just cogs in the machinery of the system. The culture determines what's valuable and what's not. And the culture designs a system. And then the system defines the terms for the projects. The architect follows instructions obediently, fulfilling the needs of the system as determined by the culture. Can we afford to keep doing that? No, we can't. So we keep talking about how will our voices be heard? Well, that's fine if you're not an architect. Be a good citizen, have your voices heard, communicate on social media the way some of you have suggested in the discussion. But is that the best we can do? We can do way better. People don't understand what is possible until it's designed. What we do on a good day is we design possibilities that people didn't previously understand. On a bad day, we simply make a slightly better slave ship or a slightly better prison, right? We're not changing the system. Then that's what happened with the slave ship. People said, oh, this is inhumane, this design of the slave ship. Let's design a slightly better slave ship. And so on a bad day, we find ourselves in the profession of architecture, designing a slightly better slave ship or a harmful, something harmful to the world. On a good day, we're producing a project that opens up possibilities for system change. And this is kind of a big deal. That is a lens, this is an analogy that we hope we can bring to everything we do as architects. It's not so much the project design as it is the operating system design. So let's look at some examples very quickly. And I've presented these before. So I don't need to do it in depth. The slides are available. Also, we're going to circle back. I think probably every one of these 4 examples, I know at least 2 of these examples are going to be the focus of our attention for a week or more. So I'm not sure about the first one. But what are good examples of project design that went beyond the project itself, that had an influence on the larger operating system? And a lot of it has to do with what Joanna has pointed out in her discussion response, is the interplay between design and governance. A lot of your discussion responses were worded like, oh, we need to help, we need to elect officials and they need to do something. They, the politicians, they. Well, these examples, I think one of the things that each of these examples has in common is that either the politicians, the leaders, the mayors and the governors and of these places are working very closely hand in hand with the designers, the architects and urban designers, or they themselves are trained as architects and designers. So it's not they, it's us working in teams. The politicians are friends and colleagues of ours when we enter the profession. I'm talking with people in the Cambridge City Council off and on. You are too.
Yeah.
With Somerville? Yeah. So the Netherlands. Why would anyone live in the Netherlands? Look at all the death and destruction from the flooding from the North Sea. The first one happened here in the 9th century, a long time ago. And it's like, hey guys, we got to get out here. This is crazy. We can't live here. It keeps flooding. Half of the nation is at or below sea level. We can't stay in this place. This is crazy. Or can we? What did they do? They experienced all this death and destruction over the years. What did they do? They changed the landscape. And in order for the landscape system to function properly, it had to be matched with a change in the way political decisions are taken. If every village has 14 farms surrounding the village, then you have to create, and each farm has their own piece of the dike, the levee that protects the village from the flooding. How many of those dikes do you need to be fully functioning for the village to be safe? Most of them? If half of the dikes are functioning, then the village is safe? Or 13 out of 14? If 13 out of 14 are functioning, then the village is safe? No. If one of the farms neglects their dike, then the floodwater is going to come in and flood everybody. It's a ring of 14 dikes. You can't afford to have one farmer saying, I'm not going to take care of my dike. So you need 100% agreement about the fact that these dikes are important. And then you have to have a buddy system. So you're checking on each other to make sure the dikes are safe. And you also have to make sure no one's pissed off with the group. So majority rules democracy is a horrible idea in this situation. So they embraced a system of consensus decision-making. In consensus decision-making, if one of the 14 farmers says, I don't agree, he's the new boss, he's the leader. Hey, Jimmy, what would it take for you to go along with this? I just don't agree. Okay, Jimmy, we're listening. We're going to listen as long as it takes for us to come to a consensus agreement, because there's no other option for our survival. So the Netherlands has that tradition reaching back hundreds of years. And so their governance structure matches the flood infrastructure of the landscape. And so it's not so much the flood threat as it is the landscape governance design, to matching the design with the governance system. as Joanna pointed out. So other things are happening in the Netherlands that are quite interesting, but we don't have time. Food scarcity. It's one of the most highly populated nations with the smallest footprint. So they've had to be very careful about urbanization planning. And this is what their cities look like in the year 2000. And this is the green part here between the Randstad, the ring of Amsterdam, Haarlem, Scheveningen, the rest. Yeah, the Randstad. And so they had to preserve their agricultural core in order to feed themselves. And their university, according to the National Geographic a few years ago, they said, they've solved the food problem. We are not going to starve to death. We don't have to have starvation. We actually have the solution. We can grow more food than we need to make sure that everyone is fed. We just have to decide to do that. It's a choice that we have. And speaking of urban form, the Netherlands, in order to maintain their readiness, their ability to grow food, they have made sure that they keep their cities compact and not sprawled. And so 1850, 1940, 1970, see how compact these cities are? 2000. And around this time, they said, oh, wait, in order to sustain our population, we need 800,000 new homes in the next 15 years. So a bunch of architects, and they thought, well, let's let market forces produce the homes that we need, capitalism, right? Let's embrace what they do in Belgium. Let's embrace what they do in the United States. Let's allow capitalism to incentivize the building of new homes, single family homes spread out across the landscape. Maybe it's time to fill in the green heart. Now that we have global trade, we don't need to grow our own food. So what does that look like? So they did something called the extreme scenario testing. This is the place they did it. They made 800,000 single family homes. And they asked students and architects to arrange those 800,000 single family homes in whatever pattern they thought might work, but it had to fit in the land available in the Netherlands. And so they did it, and it's considered a very provocative extreme scenario testing. It turns out that you can design beautiful homes and you can design locally not better or worse arrangements of those homes. But if your instructions, if your operating system says 800,000 new single family homes, there's no avoiding the inevitable outcome. It's this. It's basically Southern California. And by the way, the Randstad is about the same size geographically as Southern California. The size of its economy, it's roughly the same size of LA. And so they would basically be turning, if they changed the rules of the operating system and embraced the US model of housing development, they could have 800,000 new homes, but it would end up looking like Los Angeles. And this was a very convincing demonstration by the architects that gave them the idea of let's do something different. And so this is an example in Amsterdam of just an urban form, a compact urban form that is actually very attractive. People have a backyard. You see these courtyards? They have these courtyards, they have narrow streets, they have infrastructure that means car usage is optional, and they have these inner green courtyards for their children to frolic and play, and these streets that are for people and bicycles and not there's some cars. Trash collection is an interesting thing. So it's not so much the house design as it is the urban form. Singapore. Very quickly, 1965, Malaysia was fed up with the urban crisis of Singapore. We're Malaysia and we hate those Chinese people packed in the slums of Singapore. They're a bunch of communists. They're all impoverished. They're prone to disease, starvation, lack of water. Let's just eject them from the country. Singapore did not fight and win its independence from Malaysia. They were kicked out of Malaysia because Malaysia was run by a racist regime that wanted to not have to bother with the problems of Singapore. And so Lee Kuan Yew, who was basically the congressperson, the senator from Singapore, went on national TV and he announced to the people of Singapore that they had been kicked out of Malaysia and burst into tears. Because everyone knew what that means. Massive death from starvation. They have no source of food. They have no source of drinking water. It's a tiny island on the equator off the coast of Malaysia. Well, then came the Singapore miracle. And the way they did it was through design. They took the same failed housing models that were happening in Europe, but they made them work. And now 85% of the population of Singapore lives in this type of housing, and they're very happy. Thank you very much. They're very prosperous, and they have a very good life. This housing model was wedded to a transportation land use plan that meant we don't need cars. It was joined with compulsory savings and good schools, to the point where in the 70s and 80s, Singapore and Hong Kong, which did a similar thing, were the two places in the world with the highest quality workforce that could afford to live on the lowest wages, because they didn't need cars, because their housing was subsidized, because they had good schools without having to pay the tuitions that you pay, because they had healthcare that didn't cost what you pay. So the cost of everything was reduced because it was taken care of collectively as part of the operating system design. And it produced a huge economic boom because they had the most attractive labor force for the least money.
What was their economic policy that allowed them to do this at the time?
It was an authoritarian government by Lee Kuan Yew, which is such an interesting thing. Authoritarianism? Oh, we don't have time for that. After class. But that's what Singapore did, but it was an authoritarianism that was consultative of the people, and they had elections, and the same party isn't still in place, but it's because of a deal they make with the people. And so now it's, all the things you see on Arc Daily, it's there. The Jewel, etc. Barcelona, we'll talk about this. A lot of these slides are from Ignacio, and he will go into this, but basically, you get the picture. The transformation of places has a lot to do with the social transformation of places. The physical transformation and the social transformation are very closely connected. And the lessons of Barcelona, again, looking at Ignacio's slides, and some of you will go, this is such an important story that architects from around the world, believe it or not, actually go there. Wentworth students go there and spend an entire semester trying to figure out how design can have an impact on the social deal. And the last example is Medellin.
But you just keep one slide that is so important, this one.
It's not so much the neglect, the 40 years of the dictatorship, that just froze all improvements and crushed the social dignity and capacity of the neighborhoods. It's not so much the neglect as it is the capacity for collective design action that produces a level of dignity that allows people to be proud of who they are and where they live. Which our friends in Medellin took a lesson from. Presently, the highest murder rate in the world is in Tijuana. The first American city you have to get to, data is out of date. New Orleans has the highest murder rate in the United States. And the Tijuana, it's not as bad as it was. It's now currently like 135 homicides per 100,000 population. In 1994, Medellin, Colombia, have you seen Narcos? There was a lot of violence. It broke all records for the homicide rate at something like 3 times the highest homicide rate present in the world today. So in 2004, a mathematician whose father was a famous architect said, we need a new deal. We need basically figure out how to give the drug warriors who are returning from the jungles of Colombia. They're coming back to Medellin, and they left when they were in 4th grade. The only thing they know how to do is to shoot an AK-47. They're really good at that. That's their skill set. That's what they know how to do. They're coming back to Medellin. We need to give them an alternative. And so he went on a massive campaign of education.
In the year 2004, we got into power.
So he was elected in a landslide in 2004. He promised to not steal a penny. And that gave them an extra $900 million a year to do things. And so what did he do? He only had 4 years, because he's only allowed 4 years. He can't be reelected, term limits. So he identified the worst, the most neglected neighborhoods in Medellin, and he gave them the best infrastructure. So it's like universal design. It's one of those things where if you take care of the most historically neglected group, things get better for everyone. So the crime rate goes down and the level of desperation. So they built a world-class library park, and to connect the neighborhood to the rest of the city. They put up a fancy ski lift to help people get to jobs and education and opportunities through the metro system downtown. And we'll slow down and take a look at that next week, maybe.
Yeah.
And because it's Wentworth, when he stepped down from power, he got on an airplane and came to Watson Hall and gave us a talk about this. And it was very inspiring. And one of the questions was, how'd you pay for all this? And what's the role of the drug cartels that are still there? Maybe we'll get into that. But by asking people what they need and giving it to them, things like this community had some of the highest crime rates in the city, and they were asked, what do you need? And they said, we need to be able to get to the subway station. We need to be able to get up and down this hill. So they built this series of escalators that you've seen them, right? So they built a series of escalators, and the escalators are this mobility armature that actually are filled with community support spaces. And so a lot of these things and some of these slides, we're able to show them to you because the students who came before you showed them to us. Here's the Parasopolis example. Ooh. Yeah. And we look at things that, it's like, huh, that's interesting. We find things that are curious, that we think we might be able to learn from. And we say, what's up with that? The core question of architecture, when we're trying to make sense of the world, say, what's up with that? And to figure out what's going on here, to learn lessons from number one, the world, we use the skills of architecture and tools of architecture, number two, to interrogate the physical arrangement, to try to figure out. And what we find out is the biggest instrument of the separation is the wall of this situation is the wall. And I would love to see the photo of the chain link fence and the children playing through the chain link fence that Andresa mentioned to us on Tuesday. And then the big question, what then must we do? How do we design our projects so that they impact the operating systems? And that's when we get into principles and diagrams and approaches, which is very much a part of the assignment. So that's my intro to the course. Okay, thank you. Oh, please.
So there is something that is really challenging in this class. There are a lot of ideas that I don't have to having to say to you, but there are a lot of ideas that comes to my mind. In this case, when Robert was talking. So my recommendation is that if you have something that emerged in your brain, something that you want to discuss or answer, like authoritarianism. So type that in your desk, in your notebook. Put that in your notebook. So then we can discuss that in another class, or we can discuss that on Tuesdays, or you can discuss that through your assignments. Actually, that is the purpose of Tuesday. We open some questions today, some ideas. We're not pretending to answer everything. We're just pretending to put some ideas in the I was saying the table, but in the screen, and we will have more time to discuss that during the week, and hopefully on Tuesday. So, because at the end of Tuesday, we hope that we finish with certain diagrams, with principles that can help us to address these issues. So what I'm planning to do today, and that. So actually, I don't know if you know that this class has been done by Professor Cowper for a while. And I think it's too loud. The thing is too loud, guys. So okay. So I'm trying to figure out what could be my role in this class. So let me tell you what I'm planning to do. I'm listening to Robert lecture carefully. Actually, this is like the third time that I listened to this lecture. The first time was in video. The second time was last year. The third time is today. And what I'm trying to do is just pick up one word that I find interesting of everything that he's discussing, and trying to delaminate that word as a way to understand theoretically how we can address that word. If you read Brightspace, it says climate. I'm sad to say that it changed my mind this morning, and I changed that word to ecology. So it's trying to understand what is that word and how we can understand that from different perspectives. And that could be a way for us to understand the topic of the week better. Today we'll be talking about ecology, and I will pick up one word per week, which be basically one word that I believe could be useful, but because we are number 4, you can say, this is not the word, this is another one, and you can challenge me and through your assignment for next Tuesday. Today we'll talk about the ecology. And there's another thing that is interesting that I'm trying to realize about this class is we're giving you several examples about how others did their best to address these issues Robert talked about 4 examples today in the Netherlands, Singapore, Barcelona, and Medellin. We'll come back to Barcelona and Medellin. Today, we'll talk about one that I think did very well addressing ecology. You know what is the city? Boston. So I'll talk about Boston today. Actually, I have to say that it's true that many people go to Barcelona, and people from Wentworth are going to Barcelona every year to understand what happened. The first time that I came to Boston was as a designer. I wasn't believing to teach or living here. I came here to study Boston because it's a great example of how this city addressed ecology. So which means that so you have these examples close to address these very challenging times that we're living. Actually, we are already in the future. We're in the future where this is happening so quick. So we're being in a moment of ecological and climate threat. And we're trying to find ways how about this is speeding up really quick. Can you feel that? You can feel that every morning. So what is the amount of snow that we had this year? Very few.
Oh, great skier.
Yeah, compared to previous years. So this is happening. I don't know if you know that this is happening. This is true, but this is worse for others. So this is basically the same map that shows we're more susceptible to be affected by climate change. And you can see where the reds and the yellows are happening in the global south. So the global south are the ones that are experiencing the future now. So this is images of the global south. They are already there. They are already in the future. So this is Hawaii, Honduras, what is Maria. This happened in your country. Desertification is happening in an area that is called now the dry corridor. It changed the name. It should be called Choluteca before, and now it's called the dry corridor because of climate change. Several regions that are happening desertification because of climate change. We have floods. This is happening now. Floods in Ghana. This happened last year. Hurricanes in Punta Gorda, Florida. This is happening because we have messing up with the ecology. So, but to understand that, I would really want to understand what is ecology. So I'm gonna break the rule for 1 second. I want one volunteer to take your device. One volunteer, Liam. You took your take your device, open Google.
It's not a trap.
It's just basically break the rule. Liam is doing that for us. Okay. Yeah, type in Google ecology definition and see what Google says.
Says ecology is the study of relationships between living organisms, including humans and other physical environment.
Okay, turn off. So Google says ecology is the science that study the relationship between living organisms, including humans. This is new. Last year wasn't that in the we did the same exercise last year, and it did including humans, which is beautiful. Yeah. So living organisms and their environments. Ecology is the study of the relationship between living organisms and their environment. So actually, if we delineate the word ecology, the word logy is science that is studied. You know that? Psychology is the science that is studied the mind. I don't know, philology or politology is the science that studies politics. Everything that you technology is something that is studied something. So if this is the science that is studied, what that means? Do you know? Do you have any idea what eco means? Ecology is the science that studies something. So if the science that studied this, what that means? Do you have any idea? That means that word comes to the Greek word oikos. Oikos is a Greek word that generates the word eco, which is ecology. So this is the science that studies oikos. What oikos means? Do you have any idea? House, home. Actually, it's not house, it's home.
It's home, yeah.
It's a home. So ecology is the science that studies our home. Is it weird? Can you
Weird.
explain? Sorry?
That's weird.
It's really weird. So please tell me, how's the relationship between the science that study the relationship between organisms, living organisms, and the environment, which is the definition of ecology, as Liam said, and this idea that this is the science that study our home, please.
Because our environment is our home.
Yeah, that's it. So we have to realize that it's that simple. We're forgetting that. What home means that case, Liam? What home means?
Like our natural habitat, like where we live, yeah.
Yeah. So something is happening that we are receiving with that home that much in the history of humanity, and we will see that in week 1. We're in week 11. In week 1, we'll see how we lived in the beginning of the humanity. So we're making a spoiler of the first week, which is in 11 weeks now. For
Yeah,
now.
at the end of the semester.
At the end of the semester, we'll see how we lived in an environment where the world was our home. Now it's not our home anymore.
Or it's a transformed world.
We transform the world, receding ourselves from our home to live in what we call today home, which is the house. Are you following me? So ecology is trying to invite us to expand the home that we believe. Because so today, this is what we understand what they call it home. We have a family, and a family live in this type of environment. This is today's home. Actually, we have to remember that the word home is different than the word house. Home includes the households, includes this relationship. So our home is not only the infrastructure that we live, it includes our family. So when you think in your home, it's not only the wood-like framework home that you live in your whatever you live. It's basically includes your dad or wherever you live with. It includes your family. So the home for the word oikos includes also the people, and includes 2 types of energy. It includes non-tangible. That's too small for you. Can you see that? So okay. So include tangible interactions, include an structure and infrastructure. So the home. Let's talk for a little bit about your house. It includes the wood-like frame system that supports the roof, that supports the decks, the basement. That is part of your home. That is a structure and an infrastructure. It's tangible. But also your home includes the knowledge that you produce, the know-how, the relationship, the love, the passions, the energy, the morning, the stuff that you have in your breakfast with your family. That includes non-tangible actions. Both things are together to create the oikos. So the home, I have to remember again, is not the infrastructure. It's the infrastructure plus the relationship, the systemic relationship that this system produce. And as we just say, the home, what the word ecology is proposing just is that expands and expand and expand. Then this is our home, but this is our home as well, and this is our home as well, and this is our home. It's try to understand that our home goes beyond the infrastructure that we have. Actually, in Greek word, this is the micropolis, this is the metropolis, which is the relationship between our micro relationships in our home and our neighborhoods, and then the metropolis in our relationship with the city. And then we have the ecumenopolis, which is a fancy word to say that the world is our home as well. So for those who are immigrants, you can feel that. So I don't know who was, let me use me as an example, because I'm an immigrant. When I walk around and I see a Venezuelan person walking in the street, I don't know what happened that I recognize them.
It's the gang tattoos.
It's the gang. It's the gang tattoo.
Too soon.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and immediately I call eyes.
Yeah.
That's a guy there.
Yeah.
You have to make the joke. So there is a kind of familiarity there. I don't know if that happened to you as well. So if you go out of your country and you see someone, it's not only the phenotype, it's not only the race, something in the behavior, something is there that you recognize your fellows. So if you are around your neighborhood and you see your dad, that's my dad, that's true. But if you are in Boston and you see someone from your neighborhood, that lives in my neighborhood. And if you are in Siberia and you see someone from your city, that is from a city. So there is this kind of brotherhood that goes at different layers, different scales. So we are neighbors at different scales. Actually, there is a, you know, Jane Jacobs.
Jane Jacobs.
You know Jane Jacobs?
Oh, you will.
Oh, you will.
Oh, you will.
We have to find Jane Jacobs. In my opinion, Jane Jacobs is one of the most important things that the United States have produced in the history of humanity. Yeah, she changed the world. She understood the operating system,
Yeah,
and she changed the world.
she changed the world.
We'll talk about Jane Jacobs. Jane Jacobs was an amazing lady, and she wrote a book that I highly recommend to you. It's called Life and Death of American Cities.
Death and life.
Sorry, Death and Lives of American Cities.
And it's one of our readings.
So I strongly suggest you to go to Amazon, not now.
Don't go to Amazon, go to your local independent bookseller.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Or you can go to the library and take the book and read it. It's the history of American cities through the lens of Jane Jacobs.
The
Chapter-
operating system.
And in chapter 3, the chapter 3 is called the uses of the neighborhood. And she said that our neighbors are not only the ones who live in front of us, but the entire city. So she's talking about this. She's talking about our neighbors are not only the ones who live in front of us, but the entire city and the entire world. If we understand that we are all neighbors and we are connected with our home at different scales, we will be addressing better our ecologies. So at the end, Liam said to us, the Economenopolis is also our home. That's our home. And this is my 30% guide. Ecology means, at least how I understand that, is that this is our home. If we understand that we have to take care about our home, so we are understanding ecology, but that have happened in the past. It's 1972, Club of Rome. So in 1972, so I will try to, so that's another thing that I will try to do in this section, in these lectures. I will try to connect theory and history with the topics and the possibilities that we have. So this is 1972. In 1972, we have this picture. It was the first time that was really, really popular, the photo of the blue marble taken by the crew of Apollo 17 from the space. So that image that is very well known, actually, it used to be the most replicated image in the world before Taylor Swift. Now Taylor Swift has more likes than the world. But in the past, like 5 years ago, before Taylor Swift trends, that used to be the image that was more replicated, that have more likes. Same year, 1972, the Club of Rome wrote this book. It's called The Limit of Growth. So what that means, 1972, guys, in the history of humanity, that is just. So I was born in 1974, and I still feel myself a young person. So 1972, I know that you feel that it's really, really back in that history, but now 1972, it's yesterday in the history of humanity. So 1972, we realized that we have limits of growth. We realize that we cannot grow forever. That these 8 billion people that is growing up can have certain limits. So the world, the house has limits. Actually, we can understand that in your home. If you are with your dad, your mom, just talk about that traditional family, sorry. Dad, mom, dad, and 2 kids, and we have money for having certain amount of food per week, you know that you cannot grow more, but there are limits. You have only 2 bedrooms, you have money only for that amount of food. If I tell my wife, I want my niece and my other niece and my 3 nieces to come to my home and live with us, she will tell me, wait, I cannot. We don't have food for that amount of people. There is an issue. So there is a limit of growth in our home. We are realizing now that we have also limits of growth in the world. And the next, this is like just for fun. So I'm gonna skip this. So in this book, So they basically have a lot of graphic understanding how different data move around, and everything is combined in this very, very famous graphic that is taught in every single class of history of the cities in the world. So this is the famous Malthusian theory. Do you know this? Raise your hand if you know that. I'm gonna explain this very quick, because that is the beginning of the whole ecological crisis. It's Robert Malthus. In 1798, he created this theory. What this theory say? We have an issue that if we understand how population grows, populations are growing exponentially. We're having more and more and more and more and more and more population in the world. But at the same time, resources cannot grow forever, because we have a crop of land, we harvest potato, and next year we harvest potato. So that cannot grow exponentially, but arithmetically. So he say that because this can grow only arithmetically, and our population can grow exponentially, we'll have a point of crisis, a moment where we will be all harvesting and we will all die. I know everybody was scared. So I have no things to talk today, but I can spend the next 20 minutes to discuss if this is true or not, if you want. So I want your opinion. Is this true or not? Is it true that we are in a system where, because population grows so fast and food have limits of growth, we will be in a point of crisis in the future? Is it true or not? So raise your hand if you feel that you think it's true. No, I want to see. Okay, raise your hand if you think that it's no, it's failing. Okay, so we have Ethan and Liam and you feel that it's failing. But you just say that it's true, and you were Kondo, just think that it's true. Why? Why do you think this is true?
I think that, we're in a world that population is exponentially growing, and then, but not everyone is planning to, like, it's always going to be like the same person if you're used to it. So, Ghana, for example, there are certain things in Ghana that, like, produce a certain type of, meal, used in a certain type of climate. I mean, our climate is changing as we grow into their country, or some produce that cannot grow anymore. So it's preventing that as well. So that's why I think that.
Yeah, and just see that our people are harvesting. They're having food. Sorry, you are next. What you say that is true?
Because I think people are more concerned now about getting by, like, one day at a time rather than looking into the.
Yeah. So we're not having the experience of the American dream is over in some way. Yeah. American dream is over. So Liam, you say that this is not true. And Ethan, you also say I will go with both. Yeah.
We talked about previously in this class about the population being at its peak at 11 million, meaning that it does. Oh, sorry, 11 billion, sorry. But that doesn't mean, yeah, we might be growing exponentially, but that doesn't mean it's infinitely. And also with the more people that we have, the more farmers we have to produce more resources. I know that the land is limited.
So you're having like a hope that this is will happen. We're happening here. If that happens, so if you imagine that resources can grow also exponentially, you will never have a point of price. Are you following the graphic? Yeah, this is your hope.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, Ethan.
I think there's like some truth to it, like. If
No, stay your point.
Okay. Well, I think there's like a truth to it if like everyone in the world lived like an American, you know? And like, I think it's a little like it says a lot more about how we distribute our resources.
Oh, okay, that's a dream in distribution. So, but so and also imagine that we have a different forms of life. So, but Robert told us one idea in the Dutch example that this could be true. Do you remember what Robert said 20 minutes ago? Remember what Robert said about how they produce food in the Dutch? He said that today.
Yeah. The University of Wageningen.
Yeah. He said that if you don't have enough land, you can automate.
You can automate and you can deliver nutrients through hydroponics instead of soil. And it's now optional to have starvation. It's totally
It's
optional.
optional
It's
to
a
have
choice.
restoration. So technology, what is beautiful here, and I'm trying to be optimistic in this lecture. One of the things that happens is that there was one guy who realized that we can create technology to produce food in a different way, and technology can make this line to move here. So even though we grew our population, the population grows so fast, food also can grow so fast if we imagine a different world, if we create projects to make things different. Yeah.
But then if that's so, then I feel like our peak would raise higher than 11 billion, and then our problem wouldn't be enough land for resources, it would be enough land for our population.
Can I? It's a very complicated mathematical model. But global population, because family sizes are getting smaller everywhere in the world except for Africa. The transition is happening, has happened, or is happening everywhere in the world. The only question now is education for girls and women in Africa that will determine whether the peak is at 10 billion or 13 billion, but the peak is coming. Just mathematically, demographically, the science is in.
Yeah, but I want to highlight something of this discussion, something that you just said and Kondo said is, oh, probably we are this optimistic in the Netherlands. Yes.
Yes,
Or in Ghana?
Ghana,
No, it's not happening.
not so much.
So there is one word that Kondo say, which is certain places. In certain places, this is true. In certain places, it's not. Something that is, we're talking about inequality. Something that he's not realizing is that this model is different in different places. So probably this model where people will be harvesting or already harvesting, it's already happening.
People starve every day.
People starve every day. So we are already in a point of crisis in certain places, as Kondo just said. That's true. So this is actually, this won't be true. This is happening right now. Yeah.
Like those are for the developed countries, so if we're talking about developing countries or underdeveloped, like countries and time, it works with that, especially as resources are going down, we get more complicated because there's more land is used for houses than farms. Not everyone is trying to be a farmer now.
Yeah.
So that is the point, it's a choice. It's
Yeah, but there is a good news here is we already know how to make these also exponential. It's happening in different parts of the world, like the Netherlands, but this is not equally distributed. That technology is not equally distributed. That's the reason because we have some people that have it. Yeah.
And in the corner of the slide, you see a map of the world, and Wahenian has programs to spread this technology in every country in the world. And so they're doing their best. It's an option that's available to us. But is it happening? Not even close to me.
Yeah.
My question's been answered. I was just gonna say that, yeah, we have it in Netherlands, but not in Ghana, and how do we spread it?
Yeah. So and one thing that the Netherlands, I'm gonna skip the next one because it basically is, yes, it's a demonstration that this model was also used to increase inequality, and this is the Kissinger report. But the most important thing that we're discussing is we're coming back to this issue where some places we are start to understand how we have a better relationship with our home, with what we call nature, with what we call the environment. And we will, one spoiler for week 10, we will challenge the word environment when we talk about the city as organism. I think this is week 4 or 3. So, but let's keep that aside for a second. But we are realizing that there are certain places like the Netherlands that they are in green, because and they are less susceptible to physical climate, even if they are live below the level of the sea, because they have technologies that are used to challenge these issues, while at the same time we have areas that are more susceptible to have a threat through the harms that we're doing producing the ecology, because they are not prepared. It's inequality. So, but the good news is we have a lot of theory, a lot of ideas that help us to understand that world. These are 3 examples of books. Robert already knows that I love to put books into my slides. Sometimes I have time to talk about them, sometimes I don't. So if I don't have to talk about them, I still know some books that I personally recommend you. But this is basically a book that talks about how we can design for the tourism, how we can design in an environment where we have better engagement with the ecologies, with the world, with the nature that we have around. And these 2 are more practical solutions. This is a catalog released 2 years ago by the World Bank about how we produce natural-based solutions. These will be week 4. We'll be talking about that. But all of them talk about the possibility of a sustainable development. Do you know what sustainable development means? Sustainable development is an idea that emerged in 1987. I have to say that was a consequence of the Club of Rome. So the Club of Rome met together in 1972 to create this idea of the limit of growth after they saw the picture of the blue marble, and they met and they created a report. They put that in the United Nations, and after that, the United Nations wrote the Brundtland, our future common is this Brundtland report that says that we need to find a development that meets the needs of the present, our need, without compromising the needs of the future. So are we close to there? No. In Netherlands.
In certain places.
In certain places, but we're not really close to that. How we can create a development that meets our requirements, how we can create that within the capitalist system, we can operate that system in order to meet our needs, but at the same time with not compromising the ability of future generation to meet their needs.
That's a theory.
That's a theory. That's a theory. So actually, it's weird because I belong to a different generation than you. So actually, this is outdated in some ways, because that was like in my generation said we are meeting our needs and we have to do something for future generations to meet their needs. I don't know if you will meet your needs when you are 80s.
Well, they're already not. Look how expensive it is to sit in this room.
Yeah,
It's already happening.
it's already happening.
It's happened.
It's already, yeah. So, but there are,
Sorry.
yeah, I'm sure. In my opinion, there are 2 possibilities, like 2 different framework conduct. You look upset or more scared. Okay, you look still scared.
I'm scared.
Yeah, it's scary. It is. But you have that in your face. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm scaring you. Okay, so but there are 2 possibilities to address this. One is, these are 2 different models to address sustainable development. One is the cradle to cradle, and the other is the deep ecology. So this is what we are doing in some ways. So we are doing this idea that we produce technology in order to reduce carbon emission, the idea of decarbonization. We'll talk about that a lot about that this semester in Studio 6. How we create buildings in order that all the energy that we produce, we reduce the amount of energy that we use, and we reduce the amount of waste that we produce, and we have this idea of product to product, that everything remains in the city, within our environment. So what is the type of materials that we use in our buildings in order to reduce carbon emissions? And the other model, when I say model, it doesn't mean that they couldn't be together, okay? There are 2 different perspectives. Is the idea of Ernest Haas, a Dutch guy, by the way, called deep ecology. He said that we need to have a better connection, a more spiritual connection with the environment in order to understand what the environment needs. It's more foundational, it's more spiritual. There is a guy called Joseph Grange. he said that this is a divided ecology, which means that you divide the ecologies into things in order to operate them. And this is the foundational ecology, how you connect spiritual, in a spiritual way with ecology. In any case, I believe that we have to use technology in order to improve the way we behave with the environment, but also how we connect better and understand that ecology means that we have to understand and to connect, even in a spiritual way, with the environment. So I only have 10 minutes left. I just want to say that there are several, if you look at sustainable development and how we can address climate and ecology, there are thousands of frameworks. You will see that every year comes an additional new idea, natural-based solution, landscape-based urbanism, effective conservation, ecological urbanism. A lot of ideas that helps us to understand the way we relate with the nature, with the environment, in order to have more respectful with the ecology. So in the presentation, there are several ideas and examples, and I will present only one, which is Boston. Okay, Boston started with the understanding that landscape is something that is not there, but is here. So that is the beginning of landscape of Boston. So basically, this is how we manage landscape and environment in the past. So landscape was seen as a garden, as something that produced a diagrammatic utopia, is the beautification of our land through gardening. So this is the beginning of gardening, and like Regia di Caserta, we manipulate nature in order to make that, see that beautiful, as we're doing, for example, in university campus, in order to make that beautiful. We manipulate landscape, and we understand that the landscape and the nature was basically resources that we use to have more beauty space. So the nature, again, was resources that we use in order to make our cities more beautiful. So it's basically this relationship of extraction. Landscape and the environment was basically resources that we take, we put in our land to make it so more beautiful. It's something that is there, and we extract. And when I say resources, that includes also slaves. So this is the traditional map of slave trades from 19th century. And slaves were basically part of the nature. We use them, we move them away, and we use them for our benefits. This is but we didn't understand in the past that we use resources and we extract these resources from their original land. We changed the ecology. Actually, I don't know if you know, one of the most, I have to say that, one of the big issues of slavery is not the people who come, and that is very bad. People who were moved out of Africa, for example, and come here to serve as a slave, because they were basically natural resources that we use, we extract. But also the other issue that happened was inside Africa. I don't know if you know, and that's a lot of research about this. I suggest you a book called Why Nature Fails. They explain that very well. Yeah. They explain that when you extract African fellows from Africa, to create harms of the people who comes, or to create harms of the tribes that remains there. Why? Do you know which people are taken out of Africa to be moved through other places? The more skilled ones, and the healthy ones. To have healthy and skilled African fellows who were taken out for the tribes and relocated to Europe or America. So what happened if you live in a tribe in Africa and you know that if you are skilled and you're healthy, you will be taken out of your tribe? Just stop learning. Just stop educating yourself. Just stop taking care of your health. Because if I'm going better, I will be taken out of my mom. So there are a lot of research that demonstrated that one of the reasons, because in Africa, we have less technology. Are you following me, the connection? Less technology to address is because we created a system that invites them not to educate themselves, because they were educated, they will be kidnapped and moved to another group. Can you believe that happened? We did it. We did that thing. So basically, and that's, professor, is that related to ecology? It is. Because basically African fellows were natural resources that we extract from their places. So, and we didn't understand that when we extract a person from Africa, we change the ecology of that place. In this case, the ecology of education. One of the problems with extraction is that we didn't realize that ecology moves and it's fluid. So, but in some places, some people in the past realized that landscape also changed when you change the ecology. Sorry, I don't know if you realize that I'm moving very fluid with social and ecology, because I think we're all the same. Ecology is that relationship between people and environment. So people and environment are the same thing. So extraction of people and extraction of resources is the same thing. It's basically the behavior of extraction in an ecological system. So I'm gonna give you, yes, I have time for the last example. It's something where we did very well addressing ecology. It's possible. So I have one question for you, who has John. Is this a natural or a man-made environment? Are these natural environments or man-made environments? You say natural, it's not.
No, she didn't finish.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say natural, but it might have been manipulated.
It's, yeah, was completely built. So this is not natural. We made them. And it's basically doing very well. Let me explain you how that happened. And this is the thesis of Professor Anita Perez-Veitia from Harvard USD. So do you know Charles Eliot? Charles Eliot was the guy who produced this environment that we have now. So I don't know if you noticed that today we move around in Boston and we see turkeys and squirrels and rabbits everywhere. So do you know that that was designed? That that was made on purpose? So one of the reasons, because several planners come to this town to visit Boston, is because we have this biodiversity. We have honor animals moving around with us. They are with us. So let me tell you what happened. And this is, you can read this book by Anita Perez-Veitia. Charles Eliot realized that the town was planning to build factories at the head of the Charles, far away from Boston. They had the plan. So they had the plan to put a set of factories and use Charles River as a drainage of the factories. And he was professor at the USD at that moment, landscape program, and he asked to have a voice in the Congress, in the city, sorry. And he said, you cannot do that because you polluted the Charles River. So you will have problems in the city. But they have a lot of lobbyists asking to have factories already in the head of Charles. So and the city say to Charles Eliot. So okay, we will stop the factories in the head of the Charles only if by Friday you give us a plan how we can redo the whole system into a system of whatever you want. So they were tricking him because it was Monday. They didn't have AutoCAD, a Rhino or Revit. It was impossible to do a plan in 1 week. We have the audience this week. This week we will vote. If you have the plan with you, we will vote in favor of removing the factory. Oh, we did it. You know what happened? That guy went on third and they had it. So the conclusion of Anita is that he was prepared. He made this, he wasn't looking at the system. He realized that that factory was coming. And 2 or 3 or 4 years in advance, he made the plan waiting for that moment. When that moment happened, he came with a project. And that's the reason that this factory wasn't built, and that's the reason because we have a reasonable clean water system today in the Charles. So my point here is that one of the reasons that we are studying urbanism is to anticipate. One of the great learning from this history of story history, I always mess up with that. With this, both. It could be both in this case.
Yeah.
So one of the great learning of this history is anticipation. We have to understand how the system operates. We have to understand how we game the system, and we have to anticipate how it works in order to have the solution in advance. And he created with this map, the large system of greens that go into the city that is called today the Emerald Necklace. Actually, the Emerald Necklace is a Frederick Olmsted project designed on the base of the plan by Charles Eliot that was basically designed against the possibility of remove all the green that we had and put it in the water. One of the beautiful thing of this is something that I call the squirrel highways. Let me explain that. If you're a person, if you want to go from here to here, you take this road and you move here and you go here. But if you're a squirrel, you cannot take that road because it's not prepared for you. You are different. So designing for non-humans means that if you are a squirrel, you want to go to the same place, you can move around and jump and move and jump and jump, and you're in the same place. So this city have two networks overlap in some ways. And that's the reason because several people come here. It's a way to, in a practical way, to understand that we can have natural-based solutions, a solution that we anticipate the system in order to create a network that overlap human and non-humans into the same land. And that's the reason because we have turkeys now crossing the streets, crossing Mass Avenue. So because they can move around the system and sometimes jump to one to the other in order to move everywhere. Sometimes failing, sometimes not that good, but in several moments, squirrels find pathways to connect everywhere. The other thing that they did very well is they published, Frederick Olmsted created this amazing set of books that they understand. This is a beautiful book where you can understand that city is not a thing, but a layers of things. They were understanding ecologies in order to create this connection. If you go, I just stop here today because we are on time, but if you go to the lecture, you will see other examples. We're trying to be optimistic. And in this second part of the lecture, I'm not ready. So we're trying to be optimistic in the second part, providing you I will do that several times during the semester, providing you not only the problem and being scared as Kondo is, you're not really scared. I probably also help you, Kondo, a little bit. Huh? No? So you will be scared of the issues that we are addressing, but at the same time, we are trying to provide certain examples that help you to understand how we can game the system. I'm talking about gaming the system. Please, I wait for next class because Robert will talk about that in a very well way. I don't remember.
Well, before that, Tuesday, you will bring things Tuesday to pick up where we're leaving off and come up with more examples, more questions, more points, more challenges. Now, we hand it off to you. You have the next 5 days to bring us materials to continue this conversation. Any questions about anything? Yes.
So, the subjects for our analysis is not going to be like things I mentioned here, or?
You can choose anything you want. As it will be in the profession, your colleagues will appreciate it if you bring clear, concrete examples that are useful and that can help us figure this out, because we're all trying to figure this out. Try to bring something that will help us figure it out, but you can choose, we're not giving you a list of examples to look at. You choose anything that your instincts tell you, you can learn from this.
Yeah.
And it could be something in the slides, it could be something that you thought of while we're sitting here, it could be Donna. Really,
Yeah, at the end, if I can summarize, you have three options. You can pick an example that we discussed today. Oh, you can pick Boston, yes. You can pick the Dodge, one example like in Singapore, yes. Or option two, you can pick an example that resonates with the discussion we had today. That could be in another place. There is a third option. You pick something that you want to pick, even if you are not sure how is it related, but you think this example is amazing. Also, it's the world. But we're being very free. We'll pick one example, read the assignment carefully, because there's very clear about what we are expecting you to do. How you will submit that before class.
yeah, for class, please submit it.
And then you will discuss on Tuesday, yeah.
And one of the things you'll notice is the assignment is very detailed, very demanding, it's very difficult. That's why we're gonna ask you to do it over and over and over again. The first time you do it will probably be the lowest performing thing. We're gonna eliminate the lowest score. We're just gonna drop the lowest score. If you're like most of us, this week's assignment will be your lowest score. But still give it a shot, do your best. If you have questions, ask your colleagues. We usually set up a WhatsApp text.
That's a good idea, yeah.
So I will send you a link by email that will get us all together in a single WhatsApp chat group. You can ask questions there. Is that okay if we make a chat group?
Yeah. Okay, now we're ready. Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone.